Keep an eye on your budgets so you keep control of what you're investing. If your investments get out of control, they will run you over. Today on Growing Hope, we break down 5 simple ways you can keep an eye on the budget steering you into your big dreams.
It's time for Growing Hope, a show determined to grow up hearts open to pursue the extraordinary. Because you are extraordinary! And now, live from a little cabin in the woods, nestled along Big Spring Creek, it's your host, Kathryn Lang.
Hello and welcome to Growing Hope, where we come together to make friends, have fun, and find ways to be relentlessly helpful. Because the journey is way more enjoyable when we go together. I am Kathryn Lang, your resident Hope Smith, and I have seen hope make a difference. I believe that with a seed of hope, it all becomes possible. It is possible. Whatever you're dreaming, you can become. You can create that reality. When you believe in the dream, it is possible. And then when you dare to walk out the steps, it becomes your reality. But it's up to you. We've been talking a lot about the things that are necessary for living a balanced life. And if you've missed any of the episodes, you can always catch up over at growinghoperadio.com. But part of the process required is setting budgets for your time, for your finances, for your space, for your relationships, and for your health. Because a balanced life touches all these different areas, and you have to be alert and aware of what you have so you can use it to the best of your ability. But it turns out that once you set the budgets, you actually have to keep an eye on what you're doing so that you can recognize the moment you get off track with your budgets. So write down how you are utilizing whatever aspect it is that you've budgeted. If you have it in front of you, it's easier to follow. Balance the budget by small amounts, small segments, like an hour at a time. Balance the budget by larger segments, like by the quarter. Review and adjust as necessary, and of course, always start fresh. It's really easy to beat yourself up for what you did yesterday, but beating yourself up for what you did yesterday won't fix today. I helped my son once create a financial budget. His main goal was to finish the requirements for his merit badge, but he also knew that he needed to get in a habit of better utilizing his money and keeping up with that money. Well, a few months went by and he asked me to check his balance on my online account. Well, don't you have that all written down in your checkbook? I asked him. He said, no. No. My son was an expert at budgeting, but instead of keeping up with the budget, he just didn't write it down. I started to explain to him that you can't do that. That's not how you budget. But that was a rabbit hole I wasn't willing to spelunk that day. I just let it go. But if you are going to make the most of the budgets, you have to be sure that you're using the budgets the way they need to be used. And that means you're going to have to keep an eye on those budgets. You can't just not write it down. You can't just not monitor it. Otherwise, what good is the budget doing you? If you write it down and walk away, then all you've done is written down something and walked away. But if you keep it right there and you utilize it and you monitor how you're utilizing it, then you'll know if it's working out for you. I was trying to learn how to budget a checkbook myself, and I would write down what I spent. But one day I sent my brother to get something for me. I had a horse at the time. I had to buy the horse feed myself, and he was going down that way anyway, so he picked it up for me. He used my checkbook, he wrote a check, and he didn't write it down. Now, back then, literally cents in my checking account at times. And so what happened was, because I wasn't keeping up, even though I didn't know that I wasn't keeping up, I ended up bouncing that check, and it caused a landslide of financial trouble for me. Now, my mother worked it out for me then, but I learned early that if you're not writing it down, you really aren't keeping up with it. If you're not monitoring it in some way, then all you are doing is writing down dreams and hopes, and you're not actually pursuing them. You need to monitor your budget, and sometimes it helps to have others around you that are going to help you and encourage you in the monitoring process. Not all of us are monitor savvy. Encouragement really does make the journey easier, not only when you get encouragement, but when you give encouragement. Sometimes we need that extra push just to keep going, and we have to keep going if we're going to get there. My family and I went hiking one day. We had a limited amount of time, so I researched the different trails, and I chose one that I knew would give the boys the number of steps they needed, miles they needed for a merit badge they were working on, and would also get us back in time for what we needed to do. I didn't bother packing a day pack, despite knowing that it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. It was only a short hike. It's just about 2.5 miles, and we pretty much walked that going to the mailbox. Okay, not quite. But there are days when it feels like that our driveway is long enough that we could get our 2.5 miles in just going down there. I did have one water bottle that I took with me, and I encouraged everybody to take their own water bottle, and I made sure I would stop and take a sip every now and then. I didn't have any way to monitor my steps at that time, so I was trying to count the steps while chatting with the kids and taking pictures of them in the woods and also the scenery. It was an interesting experience. But before long, my count was closing in on what I thought would have been 2 miles, and we were still going. I didn't think the map had shown that the trail was going to loop around, but hey, I've seen stranger things when it came to maps for trails. I knew we had to be close to the start because we were almost to 2.5 miles. It was a good thing that we were getting close to the start because I was running out of water, and I was having to share with my son who had already run out of water. And then the one thing you never want to see on a hike showed up. There was a stream up ahead blocking the path, and there was a sign that said, "Path ends, turn around." Turns out that the map did not tell me that it was 2.5 miles one way. So we were not back at the beginning, but we were at the end of the end, and we had to start over in order to get back to the beginning. Turned out to be a 5-mile hike. That day pack that I didn't pack would have been nice to have. I didn't do a good job keeping an eye on what I did bring, mainly because I didn't realize the importance of budgeting. Just like with my checkbook, I didn't realize that my brother had spent the money. I mean, I knew he had spent the money, but he didn't write it down, so I didn't have it recorded. A budget helps you monitor what you're using and why you're using it. Now I'm going to overpack whatever we do. If the trip ends up taking twice as much time, I'm good. I promise you we're going to have enough water to get to the end. If you're not keeping an eye on what you have, then you can't be sure the budget is working. In truth, if you aren't monitoring it, the budget isn't working. You have to keep an eye on it so that you can make adjustments as you go, and that you can tweak the areas that aren't quite there yet. So start by writing it down. Everything you do, write it out. How much do you spend each day? How much time are you investing? How much space are you using up? The act of writing it down forces you to recognize you are doing it, and it helps you to do better. When I wrote the 1,000,000 words in a year, I wrote down my word count every day. By writing it down every day, it pushed me to write every day. And it also helped me celebrate the wins. So write it down so you can keep an eye on it. Also, balance in small increments. I monitor my time budget almost hourly. And the more chaotic things are, the more important it is for me to keep an eye on the time, or the time will get away from me. Our living room no longer has a window. Now that I've enclosed the front porch and made that our family room, and I've taken the picture window that was in the living room and made it a big giant bookshelf. But without natural light to help me monitor the passing of time, time slips past me. I used to sit down on the couch and within a blink of an eye, it would be dark 30 outside and I would be completely oblivious because I couldn't see outside. So using timers and alarms can help monitor time in small increments. Also balance the budget in bigger chunks. Managing our finances by the day can get a little annoying, especially if there isn't much to manage from day to day. But monitoring each week or each month, that may be a better system for you. Ever since I started participating in Goal Chat each Sunday night on Twitter, I have been pushed to review my week. And then at the beginning of each month, my month. And then at the beginning of each quarter, my quarter. I'm looking back at what I'm doing, so I'm monitoring my resources in those increments. Monitoring these chunks of time help me to keep track of my time, and it pushes me to adjust for better, more purposeful actions. And the adjustments happen when you take the time to review. Hold it up, look at it, recognize the goals, see how they're working or not working. When you keep a record of what you're doing, it's so much easier to review the process. And then when it's easier to review, it's even easier to adjust as necessary. I went out to mow the lawn the other day to finish what my son had started, and it wasn't, in his defense, he didn't quit because he just wanted to quit. He quit because it started to rain and it made him stop, and then the weekend was over and he had to go to school, so there I was, finishing the yard. And I mowed the entire side field before I realized someone had raised the blades. And I wasn't so much cutting the yard as I was trimming it. Up against the part of the yard he had already finished, it looked like I hadn't done anything. And technically, I didn't really do anything except drive the mower around in circles and waste the gas. So I had to lower the blades and repeat the process for twice as long, and I used twice as much gas. And if I had just checked what I was doing and what I wanted to do and reviewed the process, then I wouldn't have wasted all those resources. It seems then when I don't keep an eye on things, I end up costing a lot more. At least twice as much. And also, as you're doing this process of monitoring your budget, remember to always start with a clean slate every single day. Don't try to make up yesterday's in today. Don't try to live today off yesterday's wins, and don't try to make up yesterday's in today. Start fresh, start now. The focus folder system that I use to keep up with my process has a place to write down different chores. And at the end of the day, when I'm reviewing the day, I used to take the chores I didn't accomplish and move them over to the next day. Well, that meant that I start every morning already heavy in what I have to do. It made me tired. I didn't even want to get started. So not too long ago, I stopped touching the next day's page until the next day. In the morning, I get up, I turn the page in the focus folder for that day, and it's clean. I sometimes put down chores from yesterday, but I start off fresh. If you carry over the burdens and challenges of yesterday into today, it makes today heavier than it has to be. So start fresh and then move on from there. Budgets are necessary to know what you're doing and what you have. But if you don't monitor the budget, then you don't know if it's actually working. So are you monitoring the budgets that you have? Are you regularly reviewing what you're doing and keeping a record of what you're doing? So you not only see how you're utilizing what you have, but you see when is the best time or the best way or what gives you the best results. The more you monitor the process, the more information you gather for making the process even better. You push yourself into more purposeful actions when you're monitoring what you do and you keep that record and review it regularly. The more information you have, the better you can be. It's hard not to know these days the importance of a budget. I mean, people are talking about it everywhere. Financial commercials are on at every break. It's important to plan for tomorrow. But they don't tell you about the value of those same budgets for living today. A budget is not just about tomorrow. It is all about, really all about, making the most of right now. But once again, no matter how good your budget is, it's only as good as the monitoring you're doing to keep an eye on how you're following the budget. So write down what you're doing. Balance your budget in small bits. Balance your budget in large chunks. Review and adjust, and always start with a clean slate. There have been more times than I can count when I purposefully ignored the monitoring of my budget. I knew I wasn't doing what I needed to be doing, and I knew it wasn't getting done, and I just did not want to hold myself accountable. Yes, I know it doesn't work that way, but I did it anyway. You can imagine where it ended me up. It cost more, it took longer, or it caused hurts that I'm still trying to heal. If you take a few moments to keep an eye on the budgets, then you can save so much. My son, the one that wouldn't write down anything in his checkbook, he called the other day, and I assumed that, like all the other times, he was calling to ask about his balance. No, I can get into the account now, he told me. And that's when I found out that what he was doing is he was checking his account online almost daily. He was keeping up with his budget, just not the way that I used to keep up with my budget, and definitely not the way his dad keeps up with his budget. I mean, my husband writes it down when he spends it, and then he keeps the receipts, and he doesn't get rid of those receipts until the statement arrives. And then he has to completely balance before he gets rid of the old the old receipts. So like everything else that we've talked about, we are going to each find a way that works for us so that we will work it. You can budget for anything, and you can budget in any way that works. But if you don't monitor what you budget, then are you really accomplishing anything? Take time to keep an eye on your budgets. Thank you so much for joining me today for Growing Hope. I want to hear from you about your budget. How are you monitoring your budget, and how is it helping you with keeping that budget? Connect with me on the Growing Hope Facebook group, Growing Hope Radio, and also visit snarkyrainbows.com for a daily dose of inspiration, motivation, and maybe a bit of twisted encouragement along the way. You make the choices. You find the way that works for you, and then you begin to walk it out. I'm here to encourage you, but I can't do it for you. You can be here to encourage me, and please be here to encourage me. But you can't do it for me. As much as I would like for somebody to be able to come along and give me that easy button or give me that magic bean and make it happen, it is always going to be up to us to take the steps into our possibilities. It is always going to be up to us to make the budget and to follow through. And it's always going to be up to us to manage and monitor what we're doing to make sure it's moving us where we want to go. It's right there within our grasp when we make the choice to do it. When we make the choice to step. When we make the choice to go. Choice, you. It's no more complicated than that, but we work really hard to make it more complicated. Right now, I challenge you to make your budget and then take the time every day to monitor that budget until you reach the goals that you desire for your life and you desire in your life. I am Kathryn Lang, and I'm here to tell you that hope, it makes a difference, because every day holds a promise of more, and every action contains the power of possibility. It's not about what the world says or even what the world shows. The strength of hope and encouragement will and does push past the limits and the walls of the world. My prayer is and always will be that the words I share are helping establish foundations of hope that will shatter the delusions of the world around us. Until next time, be blessed and be a blessing.
Thank you for joining us for Growing Hope with Kathryn Lang, where we are sharing hope, encouragement, and inspiration to do more. Visit www.kathrynlang.com to invite Kathryn to be part of your event or to share your own stories of possibility living. Until next time, remember that a seed of hope planted and nurtured will grow up into a world of possibilities.